All right, guys, I'm back. I know you thought one message was all you're going to get out of me, but I actually have three. It's kind of like the Star Wars or the Marvel movies where they give you the first story, which is like today, and then they fill in the backstory. I don't know exactly what they call that, but that's what I'm going to do. So, message number two is my personal story about my personal salvation. And I don't know, I can't even wait to get to the third one because I think it's the best of all. It'll really put the icing on the cake. But my personal story really changed in 2012 and 2013. I was really at the peak of a really successful career. I mean, maybe the only thing you could have said about me at that point was that maybe I hadn't shown enough loyalty and stayed at places long enough. But I had a lot of success. I ran a property management company. At the time this all started, I had helped build a import company with some guys I grew up with. We were having a lot of fun doing it. We were all musicians, so we had this band. We had this rock star status. I mean, we were the fun guys in our industry, and I guess we had some notoriety because of all those things. But it really wasn't meant to be. And when it started to come apart, it came apart really fast. And I guess I fired the first salvo. And it's funny because when all this is going on, I mean, I'm honestly going to tell you, I was making a lot of money. I had some things lined up where it was even going to be bigger. And I had a nice house, new car, new wife. I mean, everything was like really like set up for me to just have it all. But I honestly had nothing. I mean, I had no relationship with God. I had no concept of how to live. I mean, I can remember giving money to charities, but I mean, I did nothing. I didn't lay my hands on people ever and try to help them. And so I guess this was meant to happen to me. But when it did happen, I had all these friends in my industry, and wow, I tell you what, they turned on me fast. You really, in your toughest, darkest times, you'll always figure out who your real friends are. And I hope all of you have a lot. I do. I just had some that couldn't continue to be part of my life because I guess, as I've learned, for me to really change, I had to change everything, including who and what I did all the time. So as this is going on, it's it's painful. I start going from walking around thinking that I had all the answers to realizing that I had none. And we lived on this street in Indianapolis. It was kind of near the middle of town, and there's a lot of streets that are weird in there. It's like one street has city water and lights, and the next one doesn't. We had a well, and we had not a single light on our street. So when I would go run at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, especially in the winter, it's pitch black out there. And so unfortunately, back at this time, I wasn't keeping logs. I don't remember every single date, but I'm running one day, running down the street. It's pitch dark. It's probably 30 degrees outside, so I'm all bundled up. And I stop in the middle of the street, and I'm like looking up through the trees, and I see a star. I don't know what star it was. It was like it had a tractor beam on me. And I looked up, and the only thing, and it wasn't words or audible or anything like that, but the feeling was home. And at the time, I really didn't know much about how the world works, so I'm like, all right, I guess the aliens are calling me back to Mars. No clue what it was. And I remember going back and telling Natalie, and she's just like, all right, this guy is coming apart at the seams. But anyways, pretty unique experience. And, I just kind of like anything that happens to any of us, you just kind of move on and you forget about it. But a few months later, I changed jobs. My income was really starting to fall apart quick. And I had this strong sense that there was just like dark cloud over our house. And we had this beautiful home. It had been fully renovated. There were a few things that weren't done that we finished. I mean, it was perfect. It was right by the kids' school, and we were comfortable. Like, we didn't want to go, but I knew like tough times were coming, and boy was I right. And I told Natalie, I said, we have to sell the house. I'm sorry. I know this is my fault, and I couldn't really explain. I just knew we had to do it. And so we put it on the market. Of course, a beautiful house. It sold in I think 7 days. So we didn't really have a whole lot of time to kind of plan our move, but this was not a positive event for us at all. It was sad for the kids too. And I woke up every day and it's just like, man, what is going on? Is there a curse on me? Have some witches put a spell? And I had no idea it was actually God's judgment. He was trying to change me. But so, you wake up every day and you just try to get through as best you can, but it's like you see the walls falling down and things burning all around you, and there's nothing you can do. So one day, again, I wish I remembered what day it was, because I walk outside, and I had literally broken down in tears about all this, because we didn't have anywhere to move yet. We hadn't figured out where we were going, and I walk outside, I'm on the cell phone with one of my best friends, Gene Harris, and really critical of the story is Gene was one of my best friends, but he really, through all this process, was a guy in our industry. He never left my side. He was the one guy I could actually count on to be there, do all this stuff. Because, gosh, on paper, I look like an idiot to everybody that knew me. So I'm on the phone with him. I walk outside, I'm standing behind my car, and I'm keeping it together with him on the phone, but losing it in my head. And all of a sudden, out of the sky, and I guess to frame this even a little bit more, in Indiana, when the late fall and winter comes, we get a gray film over our city. It's the most depressing thing I've ever experienced, but it lasts for 5 months, and you don't really get a view of the sun sometimes for a month, 2-3 months, and it's sad. But it was one of those days, and this was sometime, I think, in September or October, so it's kind of early for that, but whatever. All of a sudden, I'm standing there, and this light is shining on me, and it wasn't like any light. It was like if gold were light. And I'm sitting there basking in it. I know something's going on. I don't really know how to explain it. And here I am on the phone. And when I got baptized in 2015, it was October 31st, 2015, I gave this testimony to Ty Denny, who was my pastor. You can look him up on Facebook. Great man. And the rest of the church. So I'm not up for eternal damnation, so I'm not making this up. But I'm standing there. It didn't last very long, and I didn't really tell Gene about it at the time that we were on the phone, because I already seemed crazy to everybody as it was. So it bothered me for the longest time. I guess almost 2 years, because as I was preparing for my baptism, you're given a choice whether you can speak or whether you just go up there and get dunked. And for me, I told Ty this story, and he's like, you got to tell that. So I got up there and I wrote it down. When I did the script, I actually sent it to my sister and Gene both, and who knows? I don't know at that time if they looked at it and they're like, gosh, this guy's a wacko. But whatever, it doesn't matter. As I wrote it down, I kind of figured out this, I had this flash of understanding that, I was supposed to be on the phone, because what was happening to me was pretty profound. Gene, being this great friend to me and this person that I could count on, was there. And this light was like God telling me, I'm here and I'm not going to leave you. Just like he didn't abandon you, neither am I. And that's pretty awesome. So I'd like to tell you, you stand in the light of God. Like, I remember when it happened, I was like, man, I am probably getting ready to win the lottery. Or, this house was great, but wait till you see the next one. I really had no idea what I was in store for. But things started to go further down. My job situation, I worked for good people and I worked hard, but it didn't matter what I did. I couldn't put it together. And, after we got moved, I had this great opportunity, or so I thought, to come up to sell building supplies again. And, for those of you that know me, like, when I got into doing building supplies, it was like the light bulb went off for me. That's the thing that I love the most, because I like making stuff. I've got a curiosity that has to be fulfilled, so I like making things and figuring out how to engineer products, how to get them here and manage the logistics. Like, all that stuff is just, it's awesome to me. Thankfully, that's what I'm doing now, because it's feel like I was what I was born to do. But anyways, this opportunity comes up. Honestly, it went really well to start. The biggest issue was really the guy that owned the company. He was a little bit dishonest, and I certainly saw the signs there, but I felt like it was where I was supposed to be. And I'd worked with a life coach while this was going on. I didn't really have the money for it when it happened, but I just felt like I needed to do it. And it was the best thing I ever did, because it helped me clear through some of the personal issues that kind of made me make bad decisions earlier in my life, because I was carrying around this baggage that really didn't even understand that I had. And this guy was kind of like giving a biblical recipe to fix all that. And man, I'll tell you, there's a couple of things that if you've got some deep-seated issues and you need some help with, I'll put you in touch with this guy. Or there's even a couple of lessons I can show you that are free that will really lift that off of you. But when this is going on, like, he had the sense something big was coming on too, and so we thought, this was it. Right after I got done with this whole process, his job comes up. But anyways, we get there. The real issue was I was so successful at selling that we had money problems. When you buy things in China to ship here, you have to pay for them in full, but it takes 30 to 45 days to get here. Customer wants to pay net 30, next 60. Next thing you know, like, you're floating these orders for could be 90, could be 150 days. So it's a cash intensive business. And he, while I know he had a lot of money, I think that he was very careful to structure himself legally where he personally wouldn't be liable if things got sideways. And so he kind of tried to put a lot of that off on me. But anyways, we get through the business. Things are like booming. We're out trying to raise capital to solve this capital crunch that we have. And I get some people involved that I know, and as this is going on, I'm still selling. Well, he's like, hey, I can't pay you. I can't reimburse your expenses. We brought another salesperson on. He's a friend of mine. I drug her in the middle of this, but we're all excited because we see the potential in this. It's just this one guy, and so as this all going on, I'm floating these expenses, floating my personal income, still living, like I had plenty of money, and the whole sales thing fell apart. Most people at the end of the day just couldn't get past this guy, and so they backed out. And I stayed another couple months, but by the time all that had ended, and with the issues that I had had up till then with my career, I went from making like this huge chunk of money to like hardly making anything at all. And I was literally broke. We had our last phone call, and he told me it was over. I didn't know what to do. He owed me, I am embarrassed. I would be embarrassed to tell you how much it was. And honestly, I never thought I'd recover from it. So I did what anybody would do in that situation. I filed for assistance with the government. That was a humbling experience, to say the least, and one that, I mean, if I told you how I did across my career and the kind of income that I had, it didn't even seem possible. And that's how I knew, and that's when I knew that this was more of a judgment thing. It wasn't a spell. It wasn't a curse. I had the choice all along. God was showing me what to do, and I just wasn't doing it. Not all the way, at least. 25% better than the day before. And that's not where I was supposed to be. So, anyways, I filed for assistance. I guess you got to be really down and out to get it, because I got denied across the board. And I didn't know what to do. I can remember, thank God this only lasted maybe a few weeks or a couple months, but I can remember going to a grocery store and knowing I had absolutely no business being in there because I didn't have any money. I had great credit. I had possessions still. So I was better off than a lot of people that could have happened to, but it was scary. It was depressing. It was bad for the family. Of course, my financial obligations didn't stop, so I had to figure it out. Thank God I found a job. I basically had to take the first job I could to get myself out of that. And I did. I dug myself out of a hole, but it didn't come quick, and it wasn't easy. And I apologize to my family more than anybody, because I know I wasn't a lot of fun to be around back then. It was hard. And as I look back on it now, I realize, we're 7 years past that now. Things are going great for me. I got out of that. And there's some people that I volunteer with that's their whole life. Or maybe it's 20 years or 30 years of their life. So, I'm thankful beyond my ability to express, because it could have been the end. And I'll tell you, there was one day where I was out running, and I'd run in the rain all the time, but I got like 3-4 miles from the house, and it's like thunder and lightning like I've never seen before. And I looked up at God and I said, just take me now. I'm done. And I regret saying that, but I felt that day. And obviously he didn't take me. And I'd like to tell you that I woke up the next day and I didn't feel like that, but it would be not true. I felt like that for months. And, eventually those kind of feelings go away, but, when you go through these kind of things, they're hard. And especially, when there's more you can do. I think I always knew that inside, that this was really on me and not anybody else. So the guy that did this to me in this business, it wasn't him. This is God. He was just used as a vessel for God to change me. And I'm thankful. So as this is, I'm going through all these changes. I mentioned I got baptized. I got involved with the church. Really, the minute I had the light experience out my driveway, that's when I knew I had to find one. We started at Common Ground, Midtown here in Indianapolis. It's part of a 3-network church. A little bit farther from our house than we wanted to, but they had just opened a branch on the northeast side of town where I live, and we met at a high school gym for a long time, but that's kind of where I got my indoctrination into my salvation. And so we got to a new church building. It was really exciting for me, as I put a lot of energy and hours into doing some of the physical stick and brick stuff to renovate this building for our use. And so never forget that, really thankful for that as well. And we had some charity opportunities come up. One of them was called Laundry Love. The purpose of that ministry was we were going to go to a laundromat and literally just pay for people's laundry. And we picked a laundromat that was kind of in our church area, but it was a challenging area for sure. And this is an old laundry as well, so it only used quarters. And we literally had to carry this huge box of quarters and detergent and everything else in there. And it used to flood. We'd get so much activity at this event that we would have all the machines going, and this old sewer system couldn't keep up. And so I actually got pretty proficient on how to address that. But anyways, I had a lot of things happen to me there, and kind of things like I talked about in the first video and a little bit in this one too. So one of the first days I'm there, I'm like, I really enjoyed it because I realized that for me, writing a check is great, but like putting my hands on people and actually being immersed in people that are suffering is better. Because the first thing I learned is whatever problems I had, like, were minuscule compared to the problems that some of these people were dealing with. And we had people coming from shelters and all kinds of places when this word got out, because we were giving away free laundry for one day out of a month. I mean, think about that. Have you ever been there? That's tough. So I was all over this. And one of the first days I was there, maybe the second or third time, this older couple came up to me. I never saw these people again, by the way, but they handed me this. I'm going to put an image of it up so you can see this, but on it says, "If ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, nothing shall be impossible unto you." That's Matthew 17:20. And there used to be seeds in there, but they're crushed up now. I mean, like, I was blown away, and I think that, you could probably see in my eyes and my face, like, while I'm in there doing my thing, like, I'm obviously pretty troubled. And, that's been in my wallet for a long time. The other day, I was actually I think it was at CVS, and I forgot it was in there. It's been a long time, but I was kind of just having one of those days where I was really upset just about what was going on in the world right now because of COVID and shutdowns and people's lives being wiped out. And that thing fell out. I was like angry, but it falls out right on the counter, and I'm like, oh, that's the answer, right? So, I guess a few weeks after this, I'm there, and this big man, it's like 6'7", obviously a former basketball player, walks in, and he's like really full of joy, but he like takes this interest in me and kind of calls me over. He's over there pressing his clothes, and we're talking, and I'm asking him about him, but all he wants to know about is me. He wants to hear my story. It's like he already knew what the answers were, but he just wanted to hear my version of it. And I'm like kind of ashamed because this guy's in here. I'm paying for his laundry, and he brought it in bags. And I'm complaining about losing some money at a job. So his name was John Webb. That day I met him, it was extremely cold outside. I don't know what month it was, but I carried his laundry out to his car in these trash bags, and he was in I think a 2002 or 3 Jeep Cherokee that looked like it was barely running. And I found out that night that was his home. I was like, "What do you do at night?" He's like, "Well, I'm cold." And I mean, that just like hit me like a ton of bricks. I didn't have the means to put the guy in an apartment. I really would have if I could, but his muffler was dragging as he was, leaving the parking lot. I'm surprised this thing stayed on because it's just dragging across the road. And he texted me, several days later, wanted to meet for lunch. We met at Panera by my house. He somehow happened to be right over here and knew what part of town I was in. And I brought him some money. I said, "Hey, get this fixed." And I said, I don't have much more to offer you right now. And I didn't even have that money really to give him. But I looked at my troubles versus his, no brainer, no brainer. I interacted with John a ton after that. And most of it was one-sided. Most of it was him reaching out to me. And when he reached out, it was like I was at a low point where I was starting to give up hope. And he'd reach out and he'd have a Bible verse or something, to share with me that really was like, blew me away. And as I was going through this stuff with him, like I was improving a little bit. I saw his life do the same. Like he got in a house, he started a business, and things seemed to be going better for him. And so, we were kind of like pulling each other up. But I mean, there was still something about him that was more than just a person. And, his health was terrible. He had diabetes and some other things going on. He had to have parts of his foot amputated. And a lot of that was just due to the fact that he didn't have money to get proper health care. And, I would just help him as much as I could. It wasn't all the time, and it was honestly probably never enough. But, I watched this man with a world of problems still have joy. And I think he was kind of like John the Baptist. I mean, he was really convicted in his word, and he could like rattle off scriptures like there was no tomorrow. I couldn't keep up with it because I'm still at this point, I'm not a scriptural expert, but I found it just awe-inspiring to be around him. And, I remember some of the last times I saw him, he was in the hospital, he had some major surgery, and it was so funny. Like, I would always tell people, I walked into the hospital, and they're like, who are you? I said, well, I'm his twin brother. I'm like 5'0" and white, and this guy's like 6'7", monster, big guy that's black. So they're like, oh, really? I was like, oh, yeah, he's my twin brother. You always got a kick out of that. But one of the last times I was with him, he needed a ride to get places. He still had his Jeep, it's still running somehow, but he couldn't get around because his foot was in this massive cast and he had pins coming out and everything else. So we drove around. I spent the whole day with him, was talking to him a lot about some things that were going on in my life and things I was worried about that I thought might be coming down the pipe in the future. And it's funny, he was like more or less like not that worried about it. Like he was like, why do you give this stuff such weight? And the last time I was with him, he left his car phone in my car, and he needed it. He was actually getting a rental car to go see his brother who was sick, I think in Chicago. And so he had asked me to bring it back to him, which I did. And while that was going on, he was getting calls. He's like, well, listen, I need you to answer these phone calls. Like, some of them might be really important. I'm like, man, are you serious? Like, who asked for that? But so I wasn't prying through his phone, but I like some text message opened up, and I'm like, he's calling me from this other phone, and I'm like reading them to him, and I noticed that there were a lot of other text messages in there, and they were him like leading people through scripture, through other stuff. And I know there's some people out there say, oh, well, this is a guy who's pumping you for money. Well, he didn't pump me for enough, because this man was living at the bottom edge of poverty the entire time I knew him. And I wished I would have bought him a house if I could, because I thought he deserved more than that. But again, I think there was something more to him. I saw that, and I brought the phone back to him the next day. It was right about the time the pandemic starts, so it's like February or March of 2020, and dropped the phone off. I brought a bunch of canned food and a bunch of rice. I gave him some money too. I kind of hid it in the bag, because this is what my mom used to do. She'd always hide money, be a little surprise for you later. I just remember telling him, I said, don't eat this. Like, save this until you don't have anything else, because it'll last for a while. I don't know how things are going to be. And that's the last time I saw him. I don't know where he is. I've looked online. A big part of me thinks that he was an angel just sent here to guide me. Matter of fact, I'm going to say that that's exactly what I think he was. It might be real. It could be jail. It could be dead. I don't know. But he was my spirit guide, and he got me through a lot. And I guess when he felt like his work was done was when he was gone. And so I still try to reach out to him like at least once a week. I was dying to know where he is, but maybe that's how this works. So as I mentioned before, things are great for me now. Honestly, my focus really in life, it's try my best to be a good husband, father, whatever else. I always have work to do with that kind of stuff, but my career's going great, but it's I don't really care. I don't mean to say it that way, but it's not what's important. And I like doing things for other people. Right now, I volunteer once a month. It's really not enough, but once a month with Circle City Relief here in Indianapolis. And I really want to mention them because the couple that I work for, Matt and Sandy Gay, they're just amazing people, and the kind of people that if you wanted a real role model, forget about Jay-Z and some of these other ones that are stuck in front of us. But Matt and Sandy went to a ministry in New York 11 years ago. And this is a place that fed homeless people in New York City. Pretty challenging environment for sure. And they felt a calling. And for 11 straight years, they have served food to people that are homeless and struggling in Indianapolis. They have not missed one weekend in 11 years. Imagine that. And while that's going on, they've found people to donate food. They've found through almost all the major church networks here in town money to help finance it. They found board members, all great people to help guide them through that process. And gosh, it's one thing for me to go down there and lay my hands on those people that are, some of them I've seen now every third weekend for 3 years, and just feel their pain and try to help them that one day I'm there. But it's awe-inspiring to see those two and what they've done. And through my studies, I've learned there is a hierarchy in heaven, just like a business. And I got to tell you, it's people like that will be at the very top. I mean, it's just amazing. But I'm just thankful for all this. Some people will be like, gosh, what a depressing, sad story. But I went through all this and it changed me all the way through. And I am by no means perfect. Just ask my family. But I'm trying harder every day and I feel great. And I think my priorities are balanced now. And it's one of the reasons I'm really hopeful. And, people that know me will tell you, like, I love living. I don't want to die. And I can't even believe that I would let something like a job or money put me in that spot. And one of the reasons I wanted to tell you this story is just that. I mean, in my first video, I told you how death isn't anything to be afraid of. In this video, I'm saying that the way of the world isn't anything to worry about either. This is Satan's world, and he rules the money, and that's just the way it is. But you're not ever going to be judged when you're at the gates for how much you've made or what things you've acquired. And that is 100% true. I'll read you a couple things. Jesus told his disciples, he said, how hard it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. Indeed, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. And I'm one of those people, so I've had a lot of things given to me. So if you're like me and you've had a lot of blessings, man, you got to work really hard to get that stuff back, because you're just renting it. You're borrowing it from God. It's his. He gave it to you. And if you don't believe like how I'm telling you, just read Luke 12, 48. For unto whomever so much is given, of him much shall be required. And to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask more. Doesn't get any clearer than that. I don't tell you that to judge you. I am not capable of judging anyone, nor is any human. That's God's responsibility and his job. So, I want to give you one more really incredible story. My sister and I were talking about this the other day, but one of my sister's best friends and a person that was really close to my mom too, she wanted a baby. Like, that was her life calling was to have this baby. And she's been super successful in her career, but like all of us, she wants somebody to share that with. And so she had tried unsuccessfully at fertility clinics for, I don't know how many times. And I guess that's really not important in this story. But on October 12th, 2019, I woke up in the middle of the night. My mother's voice, who had, she passed away in June, said my name about as loud as you can imagine. I mean, it scared the you-know-what out of me. And I just looked up at the clock. It was 3:03. I'm like, all right, I have lost it now. And I really didn't know what to do with it. I told my wife, no bells rang. I'm online doing research. I know it's the area code for Denver. I got a lot of friends there, but, nothing clicked. And I called my sister finally, or maybe I texted her first. I said, does 383 mean anything to you? And she's like, no, not really. We're looking at angel numbers and all this other stuff. And I said, well, it's the area code for Denver. That's all I've come up with so far. And she's like, Denver? I don't want to use this person's name. I don't have their permission to tell their story, but she was like, well, so-and-so's supposed to go to the fertility clinic in Denver again. And she doesn't want to go. She's convinced it won't work, and she just can't handle the pain again. And she's like, I have to call her right now. And so she did. And she obviously said, hey, this is a sign, you got to go. She went. And my sister, we're all excited. We're like, you got to tell me how this works out. I'm dying to know. And, she calls and she's like, oh my gosh, she's in room 303. And I was like, are you kidding me? Well, it didn't turn out to be true. She's a little ahead of the game. She was, though, in room 1210, which is my birthday. Pretty strange coincidence. But you'd be happy to know she has a very healthy baby. I don't want to say the gender because I don't want to give it away. But mom and baby are great. It's the cutest kid you ever seen. And she's happy. And maybe she'll chime in, or maybe my sister will chime in to this post and confirm this story. But I think it's pretty cool. And the last thing, this thing's super long. My next one's going to be longer, so sorry in advance. I want to tell you is just a little bit about the last video. It's about the future, some of the things that I've been shown, told, whatever. We are in the most unique and important time in history. That's my belief anyways, and I have proof now that I'm going to share, but we are in what's called the second coming. Jesus is coming back, and I know it may sound crazy to you, but look around. What makes sense right now? And what really might blow your noodle is I'm telling you, it's the best thing ever. It's the best news possible for us, for those that believe. Not going to be good news for some people, but it's good news if you believe, if you're saved. And I know some are thinking, oh my gosh, it's the apocalypse. How can that be good news? I want to tell you one thing about that. The Bible, when it was first translated from the Hebrew Bible, was translated into Greek. The word apocalypse in Greek means a revelation, an unveiling or an unfolding of things not previously known and which could not be known apart from the unveiling. Does that sound like fire and brimstone raining from the sky, earthquakes splitting the land and swallowing everything up. Doesn't to me, and that stuff may happen, but I think what it means is the truth will be unveiled. I think about the Wizard of Oz all the time. You know, at the very end of that movie, they pull the curtain back and this little guy standing there pulling levers. I don't think our world's that different. We're here. Things happen we have no control over, and somebody is in control of this world, and he's not looking out for us, but I think he's getting exposed. And man, if you're not seeing that in the news right now, you're missing out. A lot of people, their true colors are coming out, and I'm glad for that. And I think there's a lot more to be shown, and it's good. So, thank you. Sorry I wasted more of your time here. Everybody knows me. You get me talking, I won't shut up. So, blessings to you and love.